All right, we are live. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to another Hindu analysis session. Today is 27th of December, and we are back with another session. My name is Govind Singh, and we'll be doing today's Hindu analysis. Firstly, you know the agenda. We'll be doing the overview of the newspaper. Then we'll be looking at a few important topics, three, four important topics in today's newspaper, and then we'll be looking at some vocabulary as well. So, without any further ado, let's begin our session. Let me just quickly present the newspaper for you guys. By the way, CLAT results are out. I hope all of you have checked your results. The final list for Hyderabad and Noida would be coming tomorrow, and for Pune and Nagpur, it would be coming on 30th. So keep a lookout for those lists as well. And if you qualify, do start preparing for your personal interview as well. And for people who are preparing for CLAT 2026, of course, we have started our classes. Also, do check out the Understanding Indian Constitution series. We have done two parts on that. First one is about basics of Indian Constitution, the historical development of the Constitution. The second one has been would be going live very soon, which is about understanding fundamental rights. Very important sessions for your basic foundational understanding of the Constitution. So do check them out. उसके अलावा आई होप ऑल ऑफ यू आर रीडिंग द न्यूज़पेपर एवरी डे especially the editorial articles because that is a very important habit to cultivate. If you're not, please start doing it. Don't postpone it till the next year. Don't think that नए साल में start करेंगे तैयारी. No, every day is precious. Every day, whenever you prepare, you are getting an edge over someone who's not preparing. So don't lose out on this opportunity where things are a little bit relaxed for you. Don't think that I would start preparing seriously from, January or from February or after my board exams. No, don't do that mistake. People, all of the toppers interview, which you would find on the channel, most of them attributed their success to starting out early. Some of them started even in 10th standard, some started in 11th standard, some started right before their board exams. So the earlier you start, the more time you have to prepare, the more time you have to devote to different subjects, and the better you get at those subjects. So make sure you make the most of them. Satviki is here. Good afternoon, Satviki. Let's begin our session for the day. Let me just quickly put up the newspaper for you guys. I hope it is visible now. So, our analysis today starts with a very sad news of the demise of our former Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who passed away yesterday late at night. And we'll be having a detailed discussion about his career, about his contributions in our analysis today. But yes, that is the headline news for the day. Very sad to hear that particular news. May his soul rest in peace. He was a good guy, pretty good prime minister. We don't really, चलो ठीक है, ज़्यादा नहीं बोलेंगे. हाँ, आगे चलते हैं. Let's proceed. RBI's monetary policy may have slowed demand. So the finance ministry has put the blame of the slowing down of demand in RBI's monetary policy. What is RBI's monetary policy? RBI is the Reserve Bank of India, is required to create a policy which regulates the demand and supply in the market, which regulates inflation, which regulates the price of the currency, all of those things. Most of you must be observing how the rupee is falling every day against the dollar, and it has reached an all-time, low in terms of how it has broken down in value. So, in terms of value, the dollar has reached an all-time high. But yeah, the finance ministry is saying that not our fault. RBI's monetary policy is to blame. Okay, then we have Congress Bill Agavi. This is not important. 10.5 lakh votes rejected in Lok Sabha polls. Threatens to seek Congress ouster from media block over Makin's comments. Okay. Makan, sorry, Makan, Ajay Makan. Makan is the name. Then we have city-based news, which we will skip because it's not relevant for us from a competitive POV. Then there is state-based news. Let's quickly skim through this and see if there is anything important. Thing here. Nothing important here. Nothing important here. Nothing important here. Biryani is a 10,000 crore market in Tamil Nadu. Damn, that's a big number. Anyone of you biryani fans? Priyanshi is here. Good afternoon, Priyanshi. All right, moving ahead. State-based news. Statue of Mahatma Gandhi unveiled at Veera South. So this is also in Karnataka, Belgavi. Mm, this is part of 2 day centenary celebrations of the 1924 Congress session at Belagavi. So, by Congress, they mean the Indian National Congress, which was formed in the year 1885 by A.O. Hume. First session was in Bombay, presided by W.C. Banerjee. Then the 1924 session held in Belagavi. Pictures of Gandhiji, other leaders who attended the 2024 session. Maharashtra Good Governance Index report released. Malayalam bids adieu to MT, the master storyteller. We did this yesterday as well. MT Vasudevan Nair. He was a screenwriter, script writer from Kerala, and he passed away. So many dignitaries have passed away this particular year. Uh, Recently, the tabla maestro passed away. Recently, MT Vasudevan Nair passed away. नाम skip हो गया मुझसे. Who was the famous tabla player who recently passed away? Why can't I recall the name? My brain has frozen. Can anyone of you recall the name? I'm just missing the name. Damn. Let me just check. Zakir Hussain. Oh my god. My brain needs some coffee. Anyway, so Zakir Hussain also passed away recently. Then Dr. Manmohan Singh passed away yesterday. So quite a sad year this has been. Okay, moving on. Gloom descends on Thunchamaramba village after it loses a mentor and a guide. This is in context with the above person, MT Vasudevan Nair. Um, Raymond means Telugu star, not important. Pocketing the Queen and other carom connections. This is also not that relevant for us. Okay, nothing important here. How the right overtook the left in India. So this is more of a politics-based editorial. So we don't really need to get into the depth of this. If you are interested, you can definitely read this. But yeah, this is how the political landscape of the country has changed after the BJP government came into power. So this is written by a former deputy mayor of Shimla and a member of Kerala Urban Commission, Tikendra Singh, and he talks about the trajectory of the left and the right. So left and right are usually the two wings of politics. One is left wing politics, one is right wing politics. The people who are in the center somewhere are called center. So there is center left as well, there is center right. But yeah, these are two branches of politics. One, let's say right wing, is where you talk about more radical ideas, more involvement of the state, whereas left is thoda sa, I don't want to say against the state, but more towards liberalism, more towards free ideas, more towards freedom, all of those things. Leadership and organizational strategies are discussed here of the left and the right. So he has given you global examples of the Chinese government as well and how they evolved as a political front. Then on the left hand side, we're talking about an avoidable tragedy, which is stampede related deaths. So multiple stampede related cases have come to light. Recently, there was a Pushpa 2 wala scandal where Allu Arjun came to a screening and there was a stampede. Some people lost their lives. Allu Arjun was jailed that particular day, but then he came out on bail and now compensation has been awarded. All of those things. Then this is an interesting article tapping into Kazakhstan's rare earth potential. So this is talking about how India can increase its ties and relationship with Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan is a source of a lot of rare minerals, a lot of rare metals, which are either not available in India, or if they are available in India, they are tough to mine. If they are still mined, they are tough to process. So Kazakhstan can be a good alternative to China, which is currently one of the largest suppliers of critical minerals or rare earth metals to the entire world, not just India. So, to decrease our dependency on China, we can tap into Kazakhstan's potential. And that is what this article is talking about. So, we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail when we come back to our analysis. Then, what do we have? This left hand side article pushed through is talking about the Kane Betwa link project, which we discussed in detail yesterday. So, we would just skip this one today. Then there is an opinion piece which is, should the wealth tax be reinstated in India? So we'll talk a little bit about this in our discussion, in our detailed analysis, that what is the wealth tax, why was it abolished, what is the inheritance tax, should it come back in India? So this is sort of an interview of two people. One is a senior research fellow and one is an associate professor at Jindal. So we'll decode this as well. Our Dilacourt saviors. This is talking about rescue of journalists. Not that important for us from a competitive POV. A boy holds an ice sheet in Drung area of North Kashmir. So snowfall has started in most of the hilly areas, and as a result, rainfall has started in the plain areas. Delhi was witnessing showers today as well. It's getting cold here due to the rainfall. Very cold, gloomy, dark outside. But yeah, we are still bright and beaming with energy. Okay, should assisted dying be legalized? So this is about euthanasia. In India, passive euthanasia is legal, but active euthanasia is not allowed. Now, what exactly is euthanasia? If a person is in a vegetative state or is in a state where he is in a lot of pain and he cannot really overcome that particular disease and come back to normalcy, he has the option to just leave, matlab just unalive himself, to put it subtly, and life support can be taken away and he can pass away in peace. So that is called assisted dying, that you die with the assistance of medical professionals and in the hospital. And as I was explaining, there is active euthanasia, active assisted dying, and passive euthanasia. Active euthanasia is not permitted in India. Passive euthanasia के लिए you have to have the consent of the victim or the family member of the person who is ill, and then you can after the permission of the doctor, if a person is in a coma or a vegetative state, you can give that permission to the doctor to unalive that person. So that is about euthanasia. We'll just look at the gist because it's talking about the bill in UK. So not that relevant for us, but you need to know the premise. Kill the bill, not the ill. So this is a slogan which is against euthanasia. The gist is the UK House of Commons recently voted to legalize assisted dying, marking a significant shift. Supporters view it as compassionate, while opponents worry about vulnerable patients feeling pressured to end their lives. Current law criminalizes assisting suicide, but the proposed bill allows terminally ill patients with less than 6 months to live to choose assisted death, with strict safeguards involving doctors and a High Court judge. India has legalized passive euthanasia, withdrawing life support for terminally ill patients through the Supreme Court's ruling, which I was just telling you about. So we'll just read the position in India because that is the only thing important for us for now. In the Common Cause versus Union of India case, this is a very important and landmark case to know. Supreme Court affirmed that right to die with dignity is an integral part of right to life and personal liberty, which is one of our fundamental rights under Article 21. This could also legalize. The court also legalized passive euthanasia involving withdrawal of life support for terminally ill people, those in permanent vegetative state. This allows individuals to die a natural death in the absence of medical interventions. Top court also issued comprehensive guidelines कि कैसे passive euthanasia operate करेगा. If a person leaves behind a living will, it must be executed in the presence of two witnesses and attested by a judicial magistrate. In 2019, Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine filed an application seeking modification, arguing that they were onerous. Onerous means very tedious as a process, or very impractical, or very burdensome and impractical. Accordingly, a five-judge bench simplified the process by imposing strict timelines at each stage and limiting the role of the magistrate. In September, Health Ministry released another set of draft guidelines on withdrawing support for terminally ill patients, addressing regulatory gap they have left. In the healthcare professionals, they specify that doctors must refrain from initiating life support measures when they offer no benefit to the patient and are likely to cause suffering and a loss of dignity. Okay. सो दे आर सेइंग कि ऐसा नहीं कि डॉक्टर्स ही बोले कि हाँ चलो इनका तो गेम ओवर हो गया इनको दे दो यूथनेशिया सो ऐसा नहीं करना है दैट इज व्हाट द गाइडलाइंस से and that is what you need to know about euthanasia in general. Then we have why is strengthening fisheries extension services crucial, what support do the Matsya Seva Kendras provide to fish farmers. So this is about a central scheme which is called the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which has the provision of Matsya Seva Kendras, which are sort of a one-stop solution to all the services for people who are engaged in the field of aquaculture. Aquaculture is rearing of fish. जैसे agriculture होता है वैसे fish के लिए aquaculture होता है. वैसे silk के लिए sericulture होता है. Horticulture भी होता है. So इस तरीके की चीजें हैं. This is all about how fishing operates and how Matsya Seva Kendras can provide help to the fishermen of India, because India has a very large chunk of population which depends on fishing as their occupation. The country has witnessed 83% increase in national fish production that stands at a record 175 lakh tons, with 75% coming from inland fisheries. What do we mean by inland fisheries? Fisheries based out of rivers which are in the mainland rather than fishing in the ocean, which is the Indian Ocean. So that is what this article is about, and they are telling you how do Sagar Mitras support fishers. So Sagar Mitras is another initiative by the government where the fishermen would be assisted by these professionals in improving their fishing activities and also getting the right price for their fish produce. So that is what this article is about. Strengthening fisheries extension services is essential to support fishers and promote sustainable practices with initiatives like Matsya Seva Kendras and Sagar Mitras. They provide critical support, training, and information to improve productivity and sustainability. Okay, so that is what this article is all about. Mixed feelings, Anglo-Indian identity, and its portrayal in films. This is not that important. You can skip this. Congress will continue fight for Ambedkar's respect, says Mallikarjun Kharge. Congress showing utter disrespect. Okay, politics is not important. Okay, moving on. AIMIM is saying that reimpose ban on satanic verses. We just saw this yesterday or day before that this is a book written by an author called Salman Rushdie on the life of Prophet Muhammad. This was banned in the 1980s by the Rajiv Gandhi government, and recently the ban has been lifted. So they are saying that the ban should be reimposed. Then this is all dedicated to our former Prime Minister who passed away, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and how he opened up India's economy in 1991. We'll talk about this very quickly. Let's just complete our overview. So, Pradhan Mantri Rashtra Bal Puraskar were awarded by the President. 17 children received these awards for exceptional achievements. Most of them are awarded in fields like bravery, science and technology, art and culture, sports, and so on. So, here you can see the picture. But yeah, that is all about it. You don't need to remember the names for these awardees. Just knowing that this is a Puraskar, that's enough. Okay, then what else do we have? The sixth edition of Shastra. This is not important. This is also not important. There was a recent crash of airplane in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan mourns crash victims as speculation mounts about cause. Okay, nothing important in the sports section as well. Yeah. So that is the overview of today's newspaper. Let's talk about our two, three important articles. Let's go back to our presentation and let's see what do we have in store to study a little bit in detail. So I'll be sharing my presentation with you all. Priyanshi is saying, is there something specific that we should remember about the 1924 Congress session? Not really. Nothing that significant, to be honest. Director Sham Benegal as well, correct. No, Director Sham Benegal also passed away recently. All right, chalo. Let's begin with our discussion for the day. First topic is, of course, about Dr. Manmohan Singh, who recently passed away yesterday night. So let's look a little bit about his journey. The nation mourns his loss. He was an economist, a very successful economist, credited with the liberalization. When did the LPG reforms come into place? They came into being in 1991 when the country was going through a major crisis, and Manmohan Singh was our finance minister back then, and he suggested that we should open up the economy, we should move towards globalization rather than a protectionist regime. So let's understand his journey from the beginning. Manmohan Singh was born in 1932 in a village called Gah, which is in Punjab, which is in the other side of Punjab, which is currently in Pakistan. So Gah, Punjab was his birthplace. In 1932, he was born in a Sikh family, and during partition, his family moved to the Indian side. Then he continued his education in Hindu College, Amritsar, then at Punjab University. So he completed his bachelor's and master's in economics in 1952 and 1954, respectively. And after that, he went to Cambridge to study economics further. So then he graduated from Cambridge, then he came back to India. Then he started his career as an academician, as a teacher of economics in Punjab University. So that was his first, let's say, professional role in India as an economics professor in Punjab University. And then he again went back to Oxford to study his directorate, his PhD, his pursue his PhD from Oxford. So very highly read, very highly talented. Went to Cambridge, also went to Oxford. Then he wrote his thesis, which was his research paper on India's export performance, which also later took the form of a book, which he wrote about India's export policies. Then his role started in the bureaucracy in 1972 when he was appointed in the finance ministry as the chief economic advisor. So in 1972, he was appointed as the chief economic advisor to the prime minister. उसके बाद he took charge as the secretary of the finance ministry. So secretary of finance ministry in 1976. Then उसके बाद until 1982 he worked with the planning commission. So what was planning commission? Now it does not exist, but back then there was no Niti Aayog. So Niti Aayog was an organization which replaced the planning commission, which used to come up with 5 year plans for the government, that the government would be achieving these many goals in the next 5 years. So he worked with the planning commission, and in 1982, when he was working with the planning commission, he was appointed as the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. So he has also been a RBI governor, which he became in 1982. So the only Indian prime minister to also have his signature on Indian currency. So that is an interesting fact. He was an RBI governor in 1982, and he served his tenure for 3 years. And then in 1985, he once again joined Planning Commission as a deputy chairman. So the chairman is the highest authority, deputy chairman is the second highest authority. So in 1985 to 1987, he was the deputy chairman of the Planning Commission once again, responsible in formulating the 5 year plans for the country. And then after that, he went on abroad to work with a Geneva based economic policy think tank called the South Commission till 1990. Then 1990, he once again came back to India and worked as the advisor to the Prime Minister of India back then, who was Chandrasekhar. So he was the economic advisor to the Prime Minister in 1990. Economic advisor to PM Chandrasekhar. उसके बाद he became the chairman of the UGC. So UGC is the University Grants Commission, which gives licenses to different colleges and universities to operate, which looks at all the universities are functioning in the right way or not. So all your syllabus and guidelines in universities are regulated by the UGC, of which he became the chairman or the chairperson in 1991. ठीक है. उसके बाद then his career went towards politics when he was invited by the then Prime Minister PV Narasimha Rao to join the cabinet as the finance minister in 1991. And why was he called on to be the finance minister? Because at that point, India was in a huge, huge crisis. India was in a lot of debt. India's foreign reserves had come down to just $1 billion. $1 billion was the amount which was only sufficient to pay for just the next 2 weeks of imports. So after 2 weeks, the Indian government would have run out of money to pay for its imports. That was the deplorable situation in which he took charge as the finance minister. And he suggested a very, I would say, drastic measure of opening up the economy, of moving towards liberalization, moving towards privatization, moving towards globalization. That is why he is called as the person who initiated the LPG reforms in India. So liberalization, privatization, and globalization came through his policies in 1991 as a finance minister. Of course, the government was not happy with this decision, but he convinced the government that if India wants to sustain and if we don't want to go bankrupt as a country, then we have to open up our economy. What do we mean by liberalization? What do we mean by opening up the economy? This means that earlier, most of the sectors were controlled by the government. All the industries were controlled by the government. All the businesses were controlled by the government. And there were no foreign brands which were allowed to trade with India. So we were a sort of closed economy. We just traded within ourselves. We engaged in import and export, of course, but we did not really allow foreign companies to come in India and sell their goods in India or to establish their businesses in India in that way. So we were a closed sort of an economy. So he opened up the economy through liberalization, that is taking a liberal stance on public, holdings. Then privatizations means allowing private companies to set up business in India, allowing foreign investment (FDIs) to come into India. Then globalization, of course, means participating in the global trade and opening up the trade to the entire world, becoming a global sort of economy. So these are the LPG reforms which he brought in 1991, which saved the Indian economy to from collapsing, from crashing. Because उस time foreign reserves, as I told you, बहुत कम हो गए थे, and our current account deficit, for people who know economics, that was also around 3.5% of the GDP, which is really really bad. एंड जीडीपी तो हमारी डिक्लाइन पे चली रही थी उस टाइम. ऑयल प्राइसेस बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गए थे बिकॉज ऑफ द गल्फ वॉर विच हैपेंड एट द सेम टाइम. 1990s में गल्फ वॉर भी चल रहा था, जिस वजह से ऑयल प्राइसेस बहुत ज़्यादा फ्लक्चुएट हो गए थे. रेमिटेंसेस कम हो गए थे, जो इंडियंस बाहर काम कर रहे थे उनकी रेमिटेंसेस आनी कम हो गई थी. बेसिकली इंडिया वॉज इन डीप डीप ट्रबल. ठीक है. So this man played a huge, huge role, instrumental role in saving that sort of crisis. He also convinced the International Monetary Fund to provide financial assistance to India, and that is how the license Raj came to end in India. License Raj means the whole protectionist closed economy sort of a thing, where you had to take a license from the government in order to open a business. Basically, government regulated every business. No business could just run without the license of the government. So license Raj came to an end with the policies implemented by Manmohan Singh, and that is why he's remembered for that LPG reforms. उसके बाद कि his political career started when Sonia Gandhi stepped out of the elections after the UPA alliance won, and Sonia Gandhi appointed Dr. Manmohan Singh as the Prime Minister. So he served as the Prime Minister of India, the first Sikh Prime Minister of India. From 2004 to 2009, a lot of developments and initiatives happened in this regime, be it your right to education, be it your right to information act. All of these came during this time. Then he was reappointed for a second term, and he became only the third Prime Minister after Nehru and Indira Gandhi to be appointed for a second term. And he served from 2009 to 2014 as well. In this period also, he initiated a lot of interesting reforms like the Aadhaar. So Aadhaar was something which was initiated during his regime. But this particular regime was also marked by a few controversies, few scams. There was the 2G scam, there was the coal scam. So yeah, there were some downsides to this particular phase of the government as well. Although he came out clean. He was not charged with any corruption and all of those things. And he said that the media has portrayed me in the bad light, but I hope history would be kinder to me. So that was his famous words in the last press conference which he took place in 2014. So he was also the last prime minister to take an open press conference. Although people, sometimes said that he was the silent prime minister, but he had the guts to take an open press conference. So that is one thing. But yeah, I'm not trying to politicize this, but I'm just saying that he was a good statesman. He was a technocrat. What is a technocrat? You might have observed this word being mentioned about him, that he was a technocrat prime minister. So technocrats are people who are experts in a particular specific niche. So, for example, he was an expert in economics. Our prime minister, our former prime minister APJ Abdul Kalam, was also a technocrat who was expert in science and rocket technology. So these are called technocrats who have a lot of technical knowledge of their subjects. So he was a very highly educated prime minister, not one of the, I think the most highly qualified and highly educated prime minister India ever saw. And yeah, India has lost a gem basically. So that was his journey of Manmohan Singh. And yeah, that's how history would remember him, as a very important person in shaping up India's economic policies and political front. He was also a good diplomat. He also pushed for the Quad membership of India. He also took a strong stance against US when the Indo-US nuclear deal happened, which was again a very tough decision to take because the country could have faced a lot of economic sanctions. But he said that no, we would proceed with a nuclear deal, and we want to make India a nuclear power. So some strong decisions also taken in his regime. So yeah, that's pretty much it about this particular news piece. Let's move on to the next one, which is Kazakhstan and rare earth potential. So as I was telling you that Kazakhstan is a country which is very rich in its mineral resources, especially critical minerals like cobalt, like lithium, which are important for for making the shift towards renewable energy, because currently we are talking a lot about how we need to move towards solar energy, how we need to cut down on carbon emission, cut down on climate change. Recently the COP29 summit also happened in Azerbaijan, which also towards cleaner energy and making innovations in technology. The demand for these minerals globally has increased a lot, and India, being the third largest carbon emitter across the world, needs to work rapidly towards renewable energy. And for that, we of course need a lot of rare earth metals. Now, India, despite being the fifth largest holder of rare earth metals, it still relies heavily on China for its imports, for extraction, for mining, all of those things. So there's a lot of dependency in terms of our supply chain towards China, and China is also playing smart about it, because they know that they have sort of a monopoly over the supply of rare earth metals, because they have signed a lot of agreements with US, Latin American countries, your the Golden Triangle of Mineral Valley countries near Bolivia, your African countries which have a lot of mines. So they have sort of created a framework where China has come out to be the forerunner of supplying these rare earth metals, and that is why it is important to strategically partner up with Kazakhstan and diversify our sources of rare earth metals. Now, China, as I was telling you, accounts for almost one third of the global rare earth minerals, and also accounts for more than 70% of the production. So ना ही सिर्फ वहाँ पे बहुत सारे मिनरल्स हैं, बट मेजर प्रोडक्शन जो है, जो मेजर प्रोसेसिंग हो रही है, वो वहीं से हो रही है. इंडिया इज गेटिंग almost 60% of its imports from China. So that means more than half of our imports of rare earth potential is coming from China, which is a huge dependency. And because we want to decrease this dependency, we are moving towards strengthening our ties with Kazakhstan. That is what this article basically is saying, that Kazakhstan has 15 out of the 17 known rare earth elements. So we have identified 17. There's a list of 17 metals, and Kazakhstan में 15 पाए जाते हैं. It's one of the richest sources of rare earth metals, and is important for India, not just from a mineral point of view, but also from a connectivity and trade point of view, because we are also developing a north-south international transport corridor there, which would pass through Kazakhstan as well. So Countries like Japan and Germany, countries like US, South Korea, European Union, they also have their partnerships and agreements with Kazakhstan, extraction agreements as well as trade agreements. And India should also move on that line because the demand would keep on growing, the demand would not be decreasing. And yeah, that's what this article talks about, that if India wants to achieve its goal of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030, we need to move towards other countries like Kazakhstan, the Latin American countries, African countries, important rare earth metals like dichrosium, lithium, all of those things. We need to source from countries other than China as well. And that is what this whole article talks about. Okay. Now, coming back to the third article, which is about wealth tax. Now, what exactly is wealth tax? Let's discuss that. So, the article is saying, should we reinstate or should we bring back the wealth tax? Now, this is in context with a panel discussion which happened in Delhi, where they were talking whether the wealth tax and the inheritance tax on the super rich people of India should come back and we should tax them on a higher tax slab. For people who are, let's say, above a threshold of wealth. This wealth tax was abolished in 2016-17, but the collections were less than 1% of the gross total. So if, let's say, the government was collecting 100 rupees as tax, only 1 rupee was coming from the wealth tax. So this was abolished in 2016-17, but now they are wondering whether they should bring back this, wealth tax or not. And the government said that the cost of collection of the wealth tax was really high. So there were multiple issues in, procuring whom to tax and whom not to tax, because the data was difficult to compile. Data would have been based on income tax, consumption, wealth, the rich list, who are in the rich list. And the data was not very specific. The data was not very precise in nature. And there were two main contentions against the wealth tax. The first was the flight of capital, that capital moving from the, companies or these rich individuals towards the government, which could again bring down the growth of the economy in general. And the second was when certain thresholds are imposed, some people would be having an incentive to stay below that. For example, if wealth tax is imposed on people who have, let's say, an earning of 10 crores per year, so people would just show an earnings of 9 crores per year, and then again the government would lose out. But the black money sort of would increase, the unaccounted money would increase, and this would again create an imbalance in the society. It would increase the gap between the rich and the poor. And that is what this article argues about, that whether the wealth tax should be brought back or not. So they are arguing against bringing back the wealth tax. And that, I believe, brings us to the end of our discussion. Let's quickly do our vocabulary for the day. The first word is plaudit, which means an act or round of applause. So basically, an applause. Her performance won plaudits from the critics. Antonyms would be smirking, taunting, putting down. Synonyms are cheering, applauding, praising. So that is plaudit. The second word is syncope. Syncope means a temporary state of unconsciousness or behoshi, faint, daze, blackout. Antonyms are well, strong, distinct. This summer, I also feel a sense of syncope. Then the third word is asunder. Asunder means into parts or pieces. Their opinions are poles asunder. That means poles apart. Apart to pieces, piecemeal. Antonyms are together, joined, connected. So that is asunder, different pieces. Syncope, a temporary state of unconsciousness. And plaudit, an act or round of applause. And that brings us to the end of today's Hindu analysis section. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was productive. If yes, please do drop a like on this section and do share it with your friends as well. And we'll meet in another session today at 8 p.m. We have a session on what are the mistakes you need to avoid while preparing for CLAT 2026. So for people who are appearing next year, for people who are planning to reappear next year, do watch that session. It's going to be very important. 8 p.m. today, understanding the common mistakes which aspirants usually do. And with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for attending. Take care. Bye bye. Signing off.